La pause, menopause.
Dun, da, da, da.
We're at episode 5. I love it when you do that. Little dun, dun, dun,
I need
dun.
to think of
Make it
something.
like an event.
A
Proper event.
Maybe more of a menopause tune. I don't know what.
Look at the twinkly twinkly at the beginning.
True,
with David
true.
ukulele. That's not a euphemism, by the way.
Tune in to see David and his ukulele.
He feels convinced actually that it's quite successful as a startup podcast because of his jingle.
Could be. I do think
he's
it makes it sound quite
that's
professional.
made the difference. The
Yeah.
ding, the ding, the ding. That's
It's because they don't listen past the jingle. They only tune in for David's jingle. This is going off on a whole David's jingle.
Tangent, yes.
Let's start again. Hello.
Episode 5. Would you believe already we're getting to be experts?
We are slotting into a nice little Wednesday routine.
Yes, with our coffee. I've got my coffee. Here we go.
So we'll start with our weekly questions.
Go for
Charlotte. It. How has your menopause been this week?
So it's been really hot where we live, hasn't it, this week? It's been really, really hot, and I've been struggling with sleep a little bit, which I don't often struggle with now. I did for a good while during the heart of the menopause. But I did wake up this week at 0404.
Ooh.
I know. And a friend of mine the night before had woken up at 0333.
Really?
Right. So she'd sent me a text that in that day to say, oh, I woke up at this time. And I was so shocked. I took a screenshot of the time and I looked at what it meant in numerology. And there's the reason why I'm telling you this, but in numerology. And so I don't know much about numerology. So I went, so she had a look and she said, oh my God, it is exactly what is happening in my life right now. So I thought, oh, I'm going to look up 0404. It is so accurate to what's happening in my life right now.
Really?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I won't go into all of the details, but the zeros are linked to angels' messages and mystical, spiritual things that are going on. And if you know me, that's my world. So that doesn't faze me whatsoever. But the 4s are all linked to doing what feels exactly right for you, looking after yourself, grounding yourself in your relationships, in your finances, in your professional life, making some decisions about maybe new challenges that are ahead, all these kinds of things. I'm thinking, yep, I can tick those off. I was literally ticking everything off on this list of what this is what it means if this happens, especially if there's 2 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa. Plus the fact 4 and 4 makes 8. And the other day we went through what's called the Lion's Gate, which is like a portal in the cosmos, the astrological, lunar kind of.
What do you mean we went through? Who went through?
We did, everybody. No, everybody. The cosmos went through it.
So I went through it too.
We all did. We all did.
It's
not like Lion Witch the Water. It's not like, oh, are we going to Narnia?
To be honest, that would have made more sense to me if I had.
I've always wanted one of those. This is the tangent. I've always wanted one of those wardrobes.
Oh. Wouldn't that be nice? But so anyway, tell us about this line. No,
Lion's Gate is an energetic portal when certain things happen in the cosmos. So certain planets are crisscrossing at certain times, and often that doesn't happen for millions of years, right? But when those coincidences happen, there's a certain energy. This particular moment is all about 888, so it's to do with the diary as well. The the
8th of August.
Exactly, the 8th of August 2024, which adds up to 8.
Oh yeah,
so you've got an 888. So it's called a portal, a Lion's Gate portal, which is a really big portal of transformation and purification.
Ooh.
So that happened last week.
Right.
And I've been going through this. I feel like I've been having a bath of transformation the last few weeks and months, which is a little bit maybe for the menopause.
But link it back to menopause, because you've gone off on this when I've asked you how's your menopause. So you must. What's the link to sort of middle age or menopause then for you?
Well, because I think if this had happened at the heart of the menopause, I would have been too anxious and scared. Not scared. That's not the word. Not self-confident enough to action what I was hearing, receiving, feeling, etc. Does that make sense? Yeah. Whereas now, when things like that happen, I go, absolutely. I can tackle that. I can do that. One of my girlfriends actually is an astrologer, and she put out this ritual that you could do, which I actually think is a really cool ritual for anybody to do, but particularly menopausal women. She did it vis-a-vis this Lionsgate thing, but I think you could do it at any pivotal point or moment in your life where you feel you need to purify. And she mixed some vegetable oil. She used Himalayan rock salt, but you don't have to. You can just use some form of salt. And she mixed the two together, and then she literally, with awareness, you can put essential oils in if you want, if you know anything about those. But with awareness, you rub it all over your body.
I'm laughing because I've got this picture when you said you could use Himalayan rock salt or you can use anything. I've got this vision of me tonight. Have table salt, pepper, a bit of peanut butter. Paul come in.
Olive oil.
Olive oil.
In the oven, ready for the barbie.
Yeah. What's happening, Charlotte? I'm going through the line.
No. You have to do it properly. You have to do it.
Carry on.
Grounded and aware. But I quite like the image too. But no, I'm saying any salt, but it has to have some kind of coarse element to it. So table salt with ginger is the whole, then just the oil.
I'll be calling you up going, this ain't working.
This isn't working. It's not exfoliating anything. It's just a mess. But then you sort of exfoliate your whole body with this thing. And then with awareness, you then rinse it off so that you're purifying anything that needs to be got rid of. So you're taking kind of dead skin off. Physically, you're taking dead skin off, aren't you? Exfoliate your body. And then if you do it with awareness and with this, okay, I need to purify this or that, or whatever it happens to be. And it's a kind of psychological and energetic way of just getting, and symbolic way of getting rid of things.
Nice.
So I did that as well this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I want to ask, you said there that a few years ago you wouldn't have had self-confidence. No. You would have maybe received the messages, but actually having the self-confidence to act and do what you need to do. So why has menopause or middle age given you this confidence that you didn't have before?
Yeah, I think because I've done a lot of work on myself in different ways, and I know who I am now.
Nice.
I really know who I am. I've kind of rediscovered myself, if that makes sense.
That's a good word, isn't it? I think there is
I've rediscovered myself.
A lot of women say that.
And I actually quite like her. She's quite nice.
We like that. We like that.
She's quite nice. And to be fair, I don't really give an F what anyone else thinks. I think that's the other thing. I remember, this is actually a really interesting parallel. I remember, so my daughter and my stepdaughter, let's say, are in Palma, Mallorca at the moment. And yesterday night, they left me a message saying, oh, we're loving it, Mum. We're on a terrace. We're having some supper. We've just been shopping. We've got some beautiful clothes. Blah, blah, blah. Now, a few years ago, about, how many years ago? 6 years ago, probably 6 summers ago, maybe, or autumn. Went to Mallorca, went to Palma with my daughters, and I did not recognize myself. So I was going into perimenopause. I'd just come out of this awful end to a relationship where he'd taken his life.
We spoke about
and it took a huge amount of confidence away from me. And I was going shopping with my daughters, who were in the prime of their, teen years. Yeah. Going into all these beautiful shops and blah, blah, blah. And I was picking things up going, well, I can't wear that.
Really?
There's no way I'd get away with that.
Really?
Yeah. And it wasn't I was too fat or whatever it happened to be, because I was really skinny at the time.
Amazing.
But I was even skinnier, I think, at the time, because I wasn't eating very well. And it was I caught sight of myself in the mirror when I was waiting for the girls to change into things so I could go, oh my God, you look amazing, because they did in everything they came out in. Biased, obviously, but
no, but they do.
But I'm sitting on this chair. I thought, it's just like your mum used to do this, and your grandma, she used to do this. And I caught sight of myself, and I think I was in a cardigan or something as well as some trousers or something. I can't quite remember what I was wearing, but I thought, bloody hell, you look like an old woman.
But isn't that interesting? Because I obviously wasn't there, but I know that you won't have, because I knew you at that time, and you've always looked fabulous. And people from the outside looking in saw this fabulous looking woman. It's again an example, I think, of
confidence
what
thing,
you feel on the inside,
I
isn't it?
did not
It
feel
doesn't matter
confident.
how you
Oh,
look
no.
on the outside.
I did not feel confident. I felt anxious. I felt unsure of myself. I mean, granted, the previous relationship had done some of that,
Yeah,
but I don't
more
think
than
that
just
it
the
helped.
menopause.
That I was
okay.
going into all of that perimenopausal
Yeah.
time as well. Probably not really knowing it, actually. But the worst symptoms then, but now I look back, the worst symptoms there that were perimenopausal. And I think it was all linked with the whole, I mean, I was going through another transformation, wasn't I? I was like, "Ooh, what am I doing next?"
There was a lot.
Where's the next thing? And I couldn't see myself going forwards. I think that was the other thing. And I was so full of this self-doubt, lack of self-confidence. And it just struck me yesterday when the girls were in Palma. It fled me back, 6 years before. And I thought, wow. And where I am now, in terms of self-confidence and knowing who I am, what I want, what I need, receiving challenges or information or just life stuff and going, that's okay, that's all right, because that's not aligned, so we're not doing that. And that is aligned, and I'm going to do that.
Aligned. That's a good
Yeah,
word.
aligned.
There's a point, there's loads of things you said there that I think we could delve into, but there's one thing that I think would be good to bring up at this point is when you said, I think it was you just said there, I couldn't see myself moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's made me think, I don't know if we necessarily always do know when we're moving forward. Sometimes this is a sort of something I guess I want to put out there. A lot of women that I see going through these dark times and these struggles in menopause and middle age.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? But the struggle is part of the growth.
It is
part of the process.
It is.
You don't necessarily realize when you're in it.
Yeah.
But it's only by figuring your way throughout the messy bit that
you have to have the dark to see the light. They always say that.
But how did you? How did you? So you've gone through. You were in that messy bit.
Yeah.
And you see yourself in a different place now. You are.
Yeah.
But has that just happened because you've gone through the menopause, or have you actively worked on stuff to make that happen?
Oh no, I've actively worked on stuff, I think, to make that happen. I mean, for a start, I did go for therapy.
Yeah.
After that holiday.
Well, of course.
I did go for it's called a brief therapy thing, I think, thérapie bref in French, but it's very specific, kind of 5 to 6 sessions that you have to do in a very short period of time. Because I thought, I need some help here. I can't do all of this on my own. It's not just by putting some sage and Palo Santo and some salt scrubbing. I needed something more.
Peanut butter and the table salt.
I needed a bit more psychological help, I think. Mental.
So you recognize
work some stuff out. Yeah, I did. So I did that straight away. And then over, I suppose, a period of time and years, I used a lot of the tools that I had in yoga, in meditation. I adapted, I suppose, some of the fitness and the sports things that I was doing just to. I was less hard on myself.
Softened.
I softened on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I gave myself realistic challenges. I think in the past I've given myself challenges that are like, fucking hell, can you do this?
Push.
Yeah. Because sometimes you're like, I'm not sure that I can do that. But when you're younger, you think, no, push through it, it'll be absolutely fine.
And you get the buzz from that.
You get a lot of buzz from it.
Yeah.
You do. But
then it stops being pleasurable.
Then it stops. It is. And then you get frustrated. And then the self-worth thing starts to kick in again, doesn't it? Well, I'm useless. I can't do it.
Comparison. I used to be able to.
Exactly. So I started to give myself more realistic challenges. And that was a big shift, I think. I joined several communities that helped as well. So a mentoring group in the States. I joined a menopause group for a whole year's journey called Haggitude, which
I love that name.
It's
I
such a
love
good name.
that
It's such a good name. Now, it's a book. If you want to read this book, it's called Haggitude, and it's by Sharon Blackie.
I've heard you.
So Sharon Blackie is a great author anyway. One of the best books, I think, for women that she has written is When Women, If Women Rose Rooted. If Women Rose Rooted. She's a big advocate. There's an oracle card thing that goes with that now. I'm not getting any commission from this, although I love Sharon. Sharon Blackie. And she's a big advocate for Celtic stories and bringing them into the now and using the tales from the past, so this is ancient past, to really help us in the now. Because I think that, I mean, this is again going off on a slight woo-woo tangent, but I think one of the anger feelings that we have when we hit the menopause is to do with all of the ancient traumas that women have been through.
It's funny, I'm reading more and more stuff about that at the moment. Trauma being carried down the generations.
Have you started reading that since you've been in the menopause?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you been more attracted to them? Turn the tables a bit. Have you been more attracted to spiritual, mystical stories, not necessarily, you know, non-fiction, but fiction stories as well that are
very much so? But I think something you said earlier struck a chord with me, and when you were speaking about finding yourself or re-finding yourself and really liking her. I think with me too, there's been an element of that coming on, reconnecting with, this sounds a bit naff, but like the younger me, like I find myself really connecting a lot more, remembering fondly the sort of teenager or younger, you know, before pre-20s and younger, that had all the hopes and the dreams and was artistic and I was quite spiritual and out there, sensitive, creative.
And did it get sort of quashed?
And then in that middle bit, when I went into those sort of late teens, 20s, trying to be like everybody else, I quashed down that side of me and embraced the other side of me, which is more the competitive, sporty, outgoing, because I thought that's what everybody wanted to see. And it's latterly that I'm like, no, when you speak about alignment, that's a big part of who I am too. And I love it. I think that's played a huge part in a lot of the contentment and that I'm feeling at the moment. Is an alignment with who I am, but who I've always been.
This is the thing, isn't it? And we were talking about this just before we did the press the buttons basically to go, because we did actually have a couple of comments come in after the last episode. We're going to go fan base
of two
or three, but we've got a good fan base. No, we have got a little bit of a
few people message us.
We have. And one of the things that she talked about was talking to your partner, talking to people about what you're going through, because I think this is one of the things that when you go through the menopause, you suddenly think, well, when you do slightly start to think, I've got the strength to be who I am, because there's a whole period where you think, I just can't possibly be who I am, because everything will fall apart.
Who you are is changing, isn't it? You can't necessarily do the things
that some people don't like. This person.
When you're trying to hold on to that, it's horrible because you can't. You can't.
I think there comes a moment, and Jung talks about. I think I've said this before in the podcast, but Jung talks a lot about this. When you get into your 40s, you start to take off the layers.
Yes, layering.
Yeah, like an onion being peeled or something. You take off all of those layers that you've put on yourself over the years, whether that's from education or family or schooling or job or life experience.
That for the most part, you have no idea you put on.
No.
I thought that was me, like me, you know, and it's only that I'm like, oh my God, no, this is me. This is me. Where's she been all this time?
That's the thing. And you suddenly think, well, actually, I quite like that person. So I'm going to go back to being quite like that person. Because I remember vividly, there was a whole time, and I'm still in that time now because I like that part of me. There was a whole time when it was almost like I was trying to put back on like wild, you know, sheepskin or, wild
Yeah.
clothes. And I could feel myself like sitting on a horse with a bow and arrow and dashing through the forest, something like Rebel or whatever it happens to be, and there was a need to go back to that.
I remember the girls laughed at you because you were, something with feathers and wolves. And
I've got feathers. I've got lots of feathers. One of the episodes, I'll have to put some of my feathers on, and then you'll see what I mean. But I've got lots of feather headdresses and stuff like that. I've got all of those kind of things. I have got those, but it wasn't just that. It was more of a visceral.
You could feel it. You wanted it.
Yeah, visceral connection. And I would go to bed at night, and actually, just recently, I've rekindled that kind of feeling. But I'd go to bed at night, and it was so vivid. It was almost real. I was snuggling into the duvet, but as if I was putting this great big fur blanket on me, and then there was like a campfire in front of me, and I was in the forest. And it was so vividly real to me as I would go to bed, and I was so safe. I felt so safe there, and I thought that must be part of my past. That must be part of another life, and even if it's not, it's something that's speaking to me now as a need for me to be myself. And I did talk, because this was one of the things that we wanted to talk about. I did talk to David, my partner, because I did get together with another person after all of this, for those who are just joining this episode. And I've been with him now for 5.5 years.
It's a while, isn't it?
We're nearly 5 years.
I can't believe it that long.
So I've been with him for now a while, which is very lovely. And I'm trying to nurture the long-term relationship. I was married before for about 14 years, so that was my longest ever relationship. So I'm aiming to try and surpass that if that's possible. But I did talk to David about all of these stages of what I was going through. Sometimes not immediately, because I didn't always understand what was going on. But
how receptive was he to it?
Bless him, really receptive in many ways. So I'm going to put this into context. My partner is a London lad, builder. He is, isn't he? He's the lad down the pub. He really is the salt of the earth kind of, just wants a pint at the end of the day and just a simple life. And he's a bit of a geezer, really, if we're talking English words, which is a real sort of, he's not an upper class gentleman. He's a geezer, which doesn't make him not a gentleman, obviously.
And then he's met you, who's at this point in life, who's wanting to reconnect.
Absolutely. I used to be called Posh Totty as well in my working environment, which was
Posh Totty.
Yes.
I was like
compared to the others in my office environment, because it was IT, and it was like I was with a load of photocopy salesmen and stuff. I was very posh. And I did
have posh thoughts.
I used to go as well. I did used to go to not Fortnum Mason. I used to go to various really posh shops to get my food.
Fortnum Mason's posh.
I didn't go to Fortnum Mason. I went to what's that department store?
Harrods.
No, I did go to Harrods a few times actually to get some of my food.
Anyway,
Harrods. But anyway, we'll go there. But he's got together with me who's going through this whole period in life. But there's a side to David, and I think I bring some of it out in him.
There's more to it.
There's much more to David than meets the eye. And he kind of doesn't embrace it. So he's much more comfortable with it now than he was when we first got together, in the sense that he sees things, he feels things. He has a kind of very, very heightened sixth sense. Mm-hmm. So he visualizes stuff in his dreams and things, and very often they come true, which is a bit freaky and spooky. He can also see things sometimes, like in a vision, and it's either happening then, but to somebody else. So he's phoned me in the past when I've not been home.
He knows that something's going on.
Are you walking down the street where there's this, that, and the other? And I'd go, yeah. And he'd be like, he said, is it bad energy or is it good energy? I said, it's good energy, because he doesn't sometimes know in his vision if it's bad or good. And there was one really specific one where he phoned me and Melody up, and we were in Paris. We were walking down a back street to get to the hotel where we were going at the time. And there was a West Indian kind of party thing going on in this big room. And there were 2 or 3 men outside with one of the mamas who was getting like a prawn stew or something was out of the boot. And all David could see was 3 dark men in this alleyway and lots of noise. And he said, so he phoned me up and he went, what's happening? I said, don't worry. we're fine. I said, it's just some big party and these guys are desperate to get to the stew before all the others get their hand on it. They're in the back of a car and they're just doing it. And he saw that vision. So he has this talent which will remain on this podcast because he doesn't listen to it, which is a good thing. But he does have this talent. So he has a kind of opening that he's much more comfortable with now. So I feel quite.
So what difference has it made to you being able to communicating with him about all of this?
Huge.
Or to both of you in your relationship?
There's nothing hidden there because, if you hide the fact that your libido is low, you're not feeling sexy, you've got all these needs that and that are not being met, they think it's their fault.
They're changing, yeah.
They think that they're not providing, so your needs aren't being met. But that's not it. It's just that you're going through a real hormonal shift, like teenagers go through this shift, right? You're going through this hormonal shift that requires certain other needs that are not being
Do you not
met.
think there's almost a shift away from you don't necessarily need someone else to meet your needs? You need to meet your own.
Oh, yeah.
But like not all of that. But yeah, whereas exactly there was a spell those middle years, and it's probably biological. You do want your partner, because it's those years where for some of this it's all about reproduction and it's that middle part, isn't it? Or building your career or building your home.
And you've got things in common then, right? You have got things in common, so you've got babies and you've got family.
And so it is that collective providing.
Sure.
And then again, back to what we were sort of saying is there's this shift that happens where it's like you reconnect with actually who you are and what you want.
Right.
And it's not necessarily for someone else to provide those things for you. And that's nothing bad for them.
No, I know. I
think they don't understand.
If they're left out.
Yeah, totally.
They don't understand. And at the end of the day, they remain men, who are fairly basic in their needs. That's not pejorative to men. It is just quite a fact. That doesn't disregard men's mental health, but men's mental health is a completely different scenario, I feel, to women's mental health. And the issues are different.
And we do need to
make it less or more. But
from what I'm seeing, the men are going through their own transition. Their own version. I think that's a different episode completely, but they're going through their own transition.
They are.
Then the us that they've known is changing.
And do you think that they also go through oh my gosh, I am losing my hair,
totally
putting belly on, blah blah blah. Yeah. My partner's not going to find me attractive.
Everything that they've kind of, we're speaking general. Everything that I am not a man. I don't know.
No.
But I can only speak about what I see and what I hear from girlfriends and stuff like that. And
I think they do. I think they go through that, and then there's this misunderstanding, I think, that happens. Because the libidos are slightly lower and because the self-image is a little bit off kilter for quite a while, very often, there's a misunderstanding that it's because you don't find the other person attractive.
Yeah, which couldn't be further
from the truth. Couldn't be further from the truth. We were talking about this just before. What we actually very often want is just small moments of intimacy, not necessarily rampant sex.
It's not.
David said this to me in the past. He said, sometimes I just want a cuddle.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is really sweet, and it's so simple and intimate. Did you know this? I don't know if you know this, but if you hug for like more than 40 seconds, so 40 to 60 to 80, whatever seconds, the heart vibration changes.
No,
the frequency changes. So you have to have a heart-to-heart hug.
Oh, I love
proper
it.
Hug. And you have to keep it for more than just a quick blah, blah, blah. Because that physical, with anybody, it's not just with your partner, the heart frequency, the megahertz of the heart shifts.
I wonder if I've subconsciously known that, because in our family, we have something, and this was my invention, but we've always done it. tummy to tummy.
Ah.
And it's a skin on skin.
Yeah.
And I've always done it the same with Matt.
With the neighbours.
Anybody can come to my house and have a tummy to tummy.
Maybe not
Actually,
anybody.
no.
No. Let's put a veto on that one straight away.
There is something that is just so, like, you know what I mean?
Contact, human
It
contact.
must be.
Human
It
contact.
must be. I love a tummy stuff.
I think human contact is really important. I think speaking is really important, but sometimes I think a hug is more powerful because it's a kind of like, I'm here, I understand, I know.
You're just there. That's all you need.
And sometimes
really, isn't it?
your words are not going to solve their problems, right?
Yeah.
It's probably just going to make it a little bit worse. Yeah. So sometimes it's not words, is it? It's just the hug that's really important, I think, anyway.
It can make it can be the difference, but it's also, ironically, the thing that when there is that lack of communication or misunderstanding,
the physical goes.
it's the thing that you don't do, isn't it? The thing that you need most, just a hug, and someone to listen. You know, and I'm talking both sides. Tends to be the thing that you distance yourself.
I think it's the thing. This isn't to do with menopause, but it's to do with hormonal shifts. I think it's the thing that made a difference to my daughter when she was full on in depression. And she was going through a really, really dark time. And it got to one point where there's nothing I could say that would enter her sphere. Nothing. And so all I did was I hugged her, but I full on hugged her for about 5 minutes until her body physically shifted and she started to cry. But I full on hugged her. And it was the only thing that I could think to do. And I had to almost tackle her to get it to be done because she didn't want to be touched and she didn't want that physical contact. But bit by bit, it just went vroom, vroom. And from that moment, it wasn't a miracle cure. It didn't happen overnight. From that moment, there was a little shift. And I, to this day, think the hug made
I think
the
there's something in this, though, for us all to learn or to be receptive to, you know, bringing it back to the menopause and middle age and transition. I guess you started at the beginning of this one speaking about space and softening things. And there's sort of an element of that again, isn't it? It's an acceptance of this can be a really tough period. Not necessarily trying to ignore it or change it or push on through it like we used to do. But sometimes not all that's needed, but sometimes part of the process and that can help is just sitting with that, accepting that, and having that hug and speaking about it. And
speaking about it, I don't know if you ever
or denying, but
have you ever had this as a comment? Because I've had this as a comment, and I've had to really bite my lip to not explode in his face, but several times, not so much now, but several times during full-on menopause, I'd have this kind of, well, you weren't like that before, or you didn't used to say that. And
is that lack of understanding? Is that because you didn't know, like you hadn't had those conversations?
Potentially. I think he didn't realize how much of a big deal the menopause is. I don't think he realized how much I was suffering and struggling emotionally, because I knew he was for various other reasons. So I thought, I'm just going to deal with this myself, because really they can't do much. You have to deal with it, right? So I thought, well, I'm just going to deal with it myself. But what I did want was a little bit more sympathy and respect for what I was going through. And I'd never been to a doctor's to talk about this. I didn't go to get any medical help. That was my choice. We were in COVID, post-COVID. I then got diagnosed with skin cancer. I thought, I can't load my body with any more environmental whatevers. I'm just going to deal with this. That was my way of doing it, and everyone has their way of doing it. And I have no criticism whatsoever for anybody's life choices then. But I really nearly snapped when those kind of things came out. It's like, because I am changing and because I will change, but that doesn't mean that I don't love you, that I don't want to be here, but I will be changing. Like I said before we started, that quote by Davina McCall, who was in
I love that.
She was in an interview recently, and it's on her Instagram page, I think. And they said to her, well, you didn't say that. I can't remember if it was 10 years ago, but I think it was. You didn't say that 10 years ago. That wasn't your opinion then. And her comment back was, yes, because I'm learning and evolving all the time. And I'm not the person that I was 10 years ago. I've evolved, I've changed, I've experienced different things. I know different things now. I feel different things now, and my needs are different now. I am evolving. Bringing it back to our partners, but we want to evolve with them. And that's sometimes where the misunderstanding. Sometimes people don't, though. This is the other thing. Yeah. I have a lot of women come to my retreats, and that's okay too. Who suddenly have the, oh my God, actually, I don't want to do this with that person anymore. And it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And I think also we should take the stigma away from that. Yes, there's something wonderful about growing old with somebody and having a long-term relationship with somebody. That's something incredible. My parents have just celebrated 56 years of marriage, which is a, wow. But there's also something worth celebrating about the strength that it takes to actually acknowledge who you both are, and whether or not it's time to go. And this is now time to do something. It takes a huge amount of strength, and I don't think people actually realize how much strength it takes to leave something that's solid as a relationship. I've seen girlfriends going through it, and I just think so respect, like that. And is the men, and the men, I've seen all the men folk go through it as well. It is not an easy decision, and the reason I say that is because when you're going through it, for example, you get all sorts of things go on. You get all sorts of comments that come in and out. You have to be really strong to not let it affect you mentally. They only realize, the other people, the strength that you had and that the things you did when they're thinking of going through it. And I say thinking of because some people start the process and then go, woohoo, that's too much like hard work. I am not even going to go there. I'm just going to lead a fake life for another however many years because it's easier. A lot of people live like that. But again, just coexist. And you can see it from the outside, but it's like not really right anymore. But it's not that wrong either. So they just. But I think, and again, it comes down to communication. And I think this is one of the things that what goes on in my life more than I'm going to share in a podcast for sure. But I think it does absolutely boil down to communication every single time that there's something not working, whether it be because of menopausal symptoms, whether it be because something has happened in your world or in your family group or whatever it happens to be. You have to talk about it. But communication is, looking back, don't you think communication is key for everything? I mean, everyone says that, but I look at all of the big dark bits of my life could have been made an awful lot easier. The dark bits of Jill's life. But could have been made a lot easier if I'd just spoken about it. Yeah. And that is something that I was saying to you earlier. I feel more connected to my partner than I have in ages. That's brilliant. Even although we couldn't be more different. And he does, he looks at all this kind of stuff. He would never watch this. But he full on accepts that it's important to me and is happy for me to do it. Yeah. But the funny thing was before I didn't used to do stuff like this because I thought, well, what would he think? He wouldn't like it. He wouldn't. And then I used to have this resentment towards him because I almost blamed him for me not being me. Oh, you see, that's an interesting kind of full circle. And so now I very much, as you said earlier, it was only through having conversations. He had no idea how much I was struggling. Because I kept it in. I tried to be strong. I put on the mask. Like many women do. And he had no idea. And it was only when we had the open conversations about the anxiety, about the depression, about the feeling that just something isn't right. I know it's not the relationship, but there's something in me that's not, there are needs that are not being met.
And I must admit, you could tell by the expression on the face sometimes that he did not get it. But he
Again,
thought
so
that it was important to me.
Scottish, a bit like David, but a Scottish version.
Yeah, totally.
So
totally.
we are with people who are almost
not emotional. You know,
David's
not
quite
much
emotional.
of a David is.
David's quite emotional, actually. Yeah,
not
no,
at all.
David's quite an emotional chappy. Yeah,
Yeah, David is. I can have a good old. I sometimes come out with all sorts to David. When
Oh, he'll go with it. Yeah, I know. He's quite good at that.
Listen, but that doesn't
That's okay.
mean
Doesn't mean he doesn't understand.
he wants to support me,
That's
and I think
beautiful.
that's it again, isn't it? It's back to that communication thing. It's like it's very easy for them, I think, to feel left out at this part of our life because they've supported us, they've been there, we've been the partner in crime for all these years, and then they see us changing, and probably feel that they're not part of that change. They don't belong in that change. And I think that was it for us, was for him to realize, yeah, I am changing. This is me, and it's very different to you.
Yeah.
But like, I want you to be part of it. I think that has changed so much for us.
So I'm going to end on this little note. In fact, I think it's perfect because this idea of communication and support. There's a girlfriend of mine left me a message this morning, and I'm not going to say who it is because she might listen to the podcast, but I'm going to take her example because I don't think she'll mind. She's going through hell at the moment in terms of a relationship choice, and she's currently she was watching the sunrise this morning. She's currently over in Bali, I think, over there, and she was watching the sunrise this morning, and she would say, what kind of relationship do I want to manifest, right? And she hasn't watched any of the Olympics. She regrets it a little bit, but she said, I did see a few clips that went through Instagram of couples who were supporting each other at the Olympics. So sometimes both were athletes, and so they were kind of trying to watch each other's events.
You saw people coming down the stand.
Yes, I don't know if you saw the one guy who was American husband to the long jumper. It was the most moving thing I think I've ever seen in a while. He was so he was like a #1 supporter. He was shouting down at the pit, the whole time, come on, baby, you got this, come on, baby. Yeah, and it was all the different jumps and everything over the Olympics. And then when he realized that she was Olympic champion, he started crying. She didn't realize she'd won. She did her last jump, and the first thing she did was fall into the sand and then run to her husband. And it was so lovely to see. Just this, and he could not have been happier for her.
There was a lot of that.
He could not have been happier for her. I was in tears watching it. And she said the same thing. She said, I want that relationship. I don't expect to be an Olympic jumper.
No.
But I want that.
And you don't expect him to be an Olympic jumper too.
But just
the support,
that support.
Love,
you don't have to solve their problems. And David and I say this to each other a lot. I can't solve your problems, but I can be here to support you. And I think that's the message from that video clip and my girlfriend's manifestation and what we've been saying. It's just, you have to sort your problems out yourself. No one can do it for you.
But you can only have that degree of support if you communicate.
If you communicate, if you talk
tell people what's going on, if you're honest with yourself, with them about how you're feeling.
And again, I'm going to quote Davina because I do watch some of the clips that she does. I haven't listened to all of her podcasts, but I've listened to a couple. She does a podcast with her new partner. I don't think they're married, but I'm going to quote her again and quote her example again, because I don't know her real world and her real life, but I suspect what you see is what you get. She's very much
down to earth.
A WYSIWYG kind of person, and she and her what you see is what you get.
A WYSIWYG.
Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
WYSIWYG. So you know that. What you see is what you get.
WYSIWYG.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
It's from
be a WYSIWYG.
I'm a techie. I'm a bit of a geek. It might not look like it, but I'm a bit of a geek. And it means when you on your screen, you don't see HTML code. You see on your screen what you will see on the site.
Oh.
It comes from tech jargon. WYSIWYG. It's a WYSIWYG setup. It's just one of those geeky terms. It's not like a coding.
I thought it was.
This is showing the whole other side of Charlotte. Anyway, but she's that kind of a person, and she obviously communicates a heck of a lot with her new partner. And I think when you do that, there's no misunderstandings. But also, I think there has to be a level of respect of, I need to be doing this. It doesn't mean I'm anti you. You need to be doing that. Doesn't mean you're anti me. And an understanding of that. Otherwise, it's very much like, well, why? She doesn't want to spend any time with me.
Yeah.
She's going off and doing these retreats, or she's doing this, that, and the other. It could be anything, you know. What do we get to do together? But one of the things, and this is one of my big things that I try and nurture with my partner, with David, is one of the big things I love, like you, is I love just coming home and having that secure, cozy time on the sofa in the evening, watching absolute rubbish sometimes on television. Sometimes it's good.
It's my favorite time of the day. I used to think, oh, that was boring. I couldn't think of, and that's why I used to drink wine, because just the thought of sitting on the couch just watching telly was like, oh, I'll just turn it into a wee party with loads of wine. But now, just the thought when I drive home from work or whatever, coming in my car, the thought of just coming home, just falling back and just being in my home, just my security, with my man, my son, my dog. Love it.
Found time. Yeah, exactly. I think it's really, I value that time.
Oh, me too.
I really do. And I think that, like you said just before we started, and I've said it already, you were saying that you just look forward to really simple moments.
I love it. I love my bed in ways I never used to love it. Morning, just getting up and doing my
okay, we're going to finish on this side. I was going to go on for a bit. Do you tell us underneath? Do you have this moment in the evening, particularly when you've done the fresh bed sheet night? But do you have the moment when you lie there in bed, go,
oh, yes, I do.
Best moment of the day. I love it. And David and I often do that together. Yes. Just go, oh, it's so nice, isn't it? Just this moment. Just this energetic downshift.
Oh, I love
moment.
it. I love it. Yes.
So we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Thanks.
For more
musings. More musings. I could add a funny quip at the end, because I usually tend to do that, don't I? It's become a little mini tradition. But right at the beginning of our discussions to do the pause menopause, I think I told you, and I think I even sent you this clip it's an American comedian. I think she's called Kristen or Kirsten. Anyway, American comedian. And they did a whole thing on the menopause, and they were behind a table. And her friend was full on going through it, and she's not got there yet. And they were doing this whole thing, and her friend calls it cougar puberty.
I love cougar puberty. Cougar puberty. Although it's so very different, but yeah, I love it.
Bit of cougar puberty. We've got lots of puberty in our house, and then we're going through the cougar puberty.
Two combined.
Two combined makes for a whole bit of fun. On that note, see you next week, my love.
Cougar puberty over now.